Hello, brilliant beauties and wonderfully reformed perfectionists. I'm your host, Naketa Rethink here at the Lazy Overachiever. Today, at another BTS, behind the scenes of the behind the scenes, I wanted to talk about more in the realm of what we've been talking about the last few episodes, where normal isn't necessary. But specifically in today's episode, I really want to talk about this around friendships. Platonic, regular friendships. Your sisterships, those, that's my sister, that's my brother, we go way back, all of it. And really looking at how you could potentially grow those friendships by questioning them. Let's start there. There's a lot of us who, and myself included, God knows I have had friendships that have taught me some unsolicited, extremely disruptive lessons that I did not ask for, partially because of why I allowed someone to be in my life, maybe what I felt was missing at the time that I was inspired or admired in them, which many times is a facade. Not all the times, but some of those times. And then the hard, brutal lessons that came with me giving my all to in a friendship perspective versus someone who was only there to extract from me. Maybe was tolerating me because I was a really, really close friend of their really, really close friend. And they wanted to make sure that they didn't disrupt their friendship. So they were tolerating, whatever the case may have been. I'm sure we all have had versions of those brutal, unsolicited, disruptive lessons, right? No question. Then there is the, good friend, good, healthy human that you don't necessarily feel aligned with anymore, and really looking at what that means for you when you are in your growth, evolution, and expansion state. Because not everyone that you're no longer friends with was a bad human, right? Be honest. Not everyone was bad or evil, or there was some major horrific fire level incident with that you had with them. And that's why the earth shook and the skies cracked open, right? Some people you just grew apart from. And it wasn't necessarily because of anything horrific or there was small yellow and red flags. It was maybe because you were closer when there was proximity there, when you worked together, when you saw each other multiple times a week, when you went to the same networking association groups that were monthly. And so you kind of always knew that there would be an anchored space and state or environment that you would see them in. So that was the glue almost for you to be able to continue in what you would consider a friendship. Or maybe it was just a really wonderful association or acquaintance, but you deemed, and maybe both of you defined it as friendship. But when you really look at what true friendship means to you, they didn't really qualify for it. You just really enjoy their company. You liked being around them. You like seeing them. I call those people parking lot people. It's not disrespectful. It's just a part of the process of a thing that I do, a whole activity with my clients. I know I've talked about it on the Balance Bowly podcast, which we also have. And I know I've talked about it here at TLO in little snippets. But whatever you call them, you know that they wouldn't technically qualify as a friendship, but you were friendly with them. And because you no longer go to that association event, that networking event, you're no longer in that school program, you no longer work at that organization, you no longer have that client anymore, that's why it dissipated, because you got, I don't like this term booked and busy, but it works for this particular moment. You got booked and busy. And so you kind of fell apart. But if you ran into each other 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you would be just as excited to see them because, again, there was no incident. There was no issue. It was just the proximity was no longer there as the anchor. You also sometimes have that with people where it wasn't about proximity at all. It was season. And we've all heard that, right? Season, reason, lifetime. There's sometimes a negative connotation around season, reason, lifetime that I think we should take apart. There is absolutely a beautiful season for you to have someone enter in, and you enter in because you are also the gift. They're not just the gift to you, but you enter into each other's world and you really add value in that season. It's okay. It doesn't make you bad people or poor friends or inadequate in any way, because both of you, sometimes, hopefully you both know it at the same time, realize that the season has ended, and that is okay. Maybe you'll come to each other in another season of your life cycle at some point. Maybe, maybe not. And then, of course, there's the reason, I had to work with this person on this project. I had to, you know, and as I attended this conference and we had to do all the team building and all the things, I not only got an opportunity to work with them that way, but we had to be in an intimate proximity with each other for that particular thing. And that was more of a reason. And maybe it extended past that with tea conversations, coffee conversations, get togethers and all that, because you were trying to see if this could be a lifetime type of thing or even a seasonal thing, but it just wasn't. It was for a reason, both on the negative side for some of those reasons, those lessons that are unsolicited and disruptive, but also sometimes in the fruit bearing versions of those that was such a gift to yourself, of something you didn't know you needed, a software you never heard of. It could be that small, a person that they're connected to or they are aware of that's in their loose, the edges of their ecosystem, that they become a conduit to you for, because through them, you get to meet that person or vice versa. That's all good. It's all a part of the process. And of course, we have the lifetime friends that we thought were going to be lifetime friends. And then there was an incident or several incidents that were stacking up. And many of them, which is the part that I'm talking about today, many of those incidents, challenges, yellow flags, red flags, all of the things are what we stopped paying attention to because we chose to tell ourselves that this is just normal. This is just how Tina is. This is just how Tiffany is. This is just how David is. This is just how, Brandon is, right? Like we just kind of accepted it. And if you are considering that you may be the lazy overachiever, like this is the season that you are going in where you are embracing rest, you are trusting your inner brilliance, you are trying to embrace rest or trust your inner brilliance, you are seeing that there's so much value and benefit in creating very strategic spaces for yourself to slow down so that you can speed up, so that you can be calmer and just more in tune with yourself, so you can listen and not always go from push energy, and you can literally pull in what is for you. If that is the season that you are deep in or even on the edges of entering in, then you know that this can no longer be tolerated, that you have to question everything, question your questions, question what has become normal in your friendship that you have been allowing, not just about what he, she, they are doing in your relationship, but also what you're doing. Because I stand 10 toes down, and many times the things that we are putting up with, tolerating, whatever the phrases you want to use in those relationships are for a reason. You are getting something out of that friendship too. Sometimes what you're getting is you're needed. You feel necessary in a different way. Maybe you're necessary at work and in your business and all those things in a very different way, but this person seems to want to benefit from your wisdom, from your life experience in a very different way than work. Or maybe it's a continuation of work, and the reason that they have your friend or they're tapping into this version of you in this stage of your friendship is because of what you do at work, where they should be a client, but they don't want to pay for it. They don't feel like they should have to pay for it because they're a friend and they've been friends with you even maybe before you started the business or before you got that degree and you started up that career or you got those awards or whatever. And they feel like they should have access to it, which is disrespectful on so many ways. And we won't even spend the time doing that right now, especially when it's a service versus a product. Whole different thing. If you want to gift something from your friend for your friend, that's very different than them feeling entitled to it. But that part aside, when you have that person in your life and you feel like there's something constantly being pulled away from you, extracted from you, you feel tension, your shoulders rise up when you see their name show up on the phone, or you get a text message or an email, a phone call, a snail mail, whatever, you really do want to start listening to what's happening in your body. And you want to start listening to yourself around those little comments that you're making. Maybe you don't say them out loud. Maybe you say them to your best friend. Maybe you say them in your head when you're walking away from the phone. Maybe you do say them out loud when you're fussing and cussing because you're really irritated. Pay attention to what's coming up for you, because it may be your newer version of yourself speaking back into you, saying that something has to be different in this relationship. You need to question the norms, because again, normal is not necessary. Just because it's normal for Naketa to act a certain way, to say a certain thing, to look at you a certain way, it's totally normal. And maybe you even know it's coming from love, or at least that's how you've identified it, or you've played into the version that Naketa has told you is the truth. And maybe it is her truth in that moment. Of course, I'm Naketa, but I'm using a different Naketa for this, metaphor. But if that's coming up for you and it's not, there's friction there and you're not feeling like it's aligned anymore. Like, yeah, the 20-some-year version of you thought it was cute, it was funny, it was fine. The 30-year-old version of you got really tired of it. The 40, 50, 60-year-old version of it is really like, I don't even know why I even consider having her a part of the list of people, or him or them as a part of the list of people that I say are friends anymore, because you don't feel that way. You really want to question it. And part of how you do that is by looking at how you define support in your way. Everybody has their own way. I'm not judging. Of course, there are toxic ways for this as well, but assuming that toxicity isn't a part of your friendship, just looking at, and again, these are the lifetime people, or the people you thought would be lifetime that we're concentrating on here. Just looking at, how are you feeling supported, and A and D in parentheses, how are you supporting in that relationship? Because you could very well be the person that's always being checked on, that's always having the text messages sent your way, that's always having the person invite you to a thing. And that is why you're friends, because they're doing the initiating work and you're responding. Is that really the way you want your relationships to be? Now, there's nothing wrong with having a mix of those moments. And sometimes there are seasons where someone is checking on you more because maybe they're aware that you're in what we would call a valley state. You're in a lower state than your normal high vibrating self. And that is a season where you're not doing a lot of the initiating because you're using your energy to heal. You're using your energy to recalibrate. That's totally fine. And people who are your friends understand and respect that. But if that has become your relationship for years and years and years, where they're always doing it, you have to look at how you're showing up in this relationship. So everything is not about pointing the finger. I'm not one of those people that believe that every friendship that went wrong is because of the other person. You have to take accountability for yourself as well in that. But look at where you're showing up. Are you initiating? Are you adding to them in some beautiful way besides just being responsive? Are you being responsive and thinking that you're adding to them because they're constantly, when they're initiating, they're tapping into your expertise. And so because you're giving/gifting them their expertise back, you feel like there's an even exchange. Like, yeah, I can't remember the last time I called Jonathan over the last 5 years, but I talk to him frequently. And every time he asks for anything, I'm willing to show up. Like, it's not a problem. But isn't it though? Like, is that what you want? Do you want to feel like someone is constantly tapping in? If that's the case, they should go through your business door. And maybe you establish other experts in your business that if you don't feel comfortable working for your friends or family, you direct them to. Or maybe you have aligned partners that do things similar to your wheelhouse, which again, no competition because you compete with yourself only, that you can say, you know what? As a balance and relationship advisor, I don't want to work with you this way because of the bias and some of the things. And it's just not something I want. Maybe even privately, whether you say it out loud, you know that your price point is not something that's feasible for them, but you really want them to be supported. So maybe you know someone else who's doing personal development and relational wellness and touches on work-life balance or work-life integration or work-life harmony, something that's in the same kind of umbrella realm. And you say, you know what, friend, family member, person I love, let me direct you to them because they offer really amazing services and I think you could benefit from them. Right. And you just redirect there. That's why it's really always good to know people who do something similar to what you do because you can refer to each other, which is a whole different episode altogether. Because again, no competition ever. You compete with you, the version of you an hour ago, yesterday, 10 years ago, and so on, so that you can become a better version of yourself in the next hour, the next day, and the next decade, right? Being that as it may, look at where you're contributing in your friendship and what has become normal for you, but also look at how they're supporting you. If this person or people are all about quantity, they count support as they've talked to you 5 times that week or that month or that quarter. They're constantly inviting you to all the events that they're doing. And they qualify that as support because I'm inviting you into my world. I'm doing all the things, which is important. You do want to know what's happening in your friends' worlds, whether you can physically attend those things or not, or send a gift ahead, whatever. But you also want to look at, is that all that they're contacting you for? Or is it like a numbers game? One of the things that gets in my personal crawl is when I receive a message just like, hey, I'm just checking on you. What's going on? From someone who we really don't have any deep conversations with. Now, I get those same exact messages from people in my tighter inner circle, and I look forward to them. I'm happy to explain. Sometimes it's a bullet point reply. Sometimes it's a video message or voice note reply. Sometimes it's an actual phone call. Sometimes it's a date to meet up in person, whatever the context of that could be. But for people who I really don't talk to that way, and we don't have depth to our relationship because we are not friends in the way that I would define them. We're friendly, we're acquaintance, we're colleagues. Sometimes all of those things can be true, but I haven't counted them as someone that I would have a deeper conversation with. It's a little irking because you feel like you're being monitored. Like, why are you checking in this way and saying, what's going on with you? How are you? And I don't mean the, hey, I'm just thinking about you. That's different than the, hey, what's going on with you? So let me give you an example because I know your head is probably going multiple different ways and we only have a few minutes, but let me give you an example. So if you have those people in your life that send you the messages. Now I'm picking on text messages, but this can be applicable to a phone call or an in-person conversation. And they say things like, hey, what's going on with you? How are you? And they may even be as detailed as to name your children, your partners, your parents, a project name that they remembered. And they ask specifically about these things, either in concession or all in one lump. And you honestly answer, oh, my son is this, my daughter's this, the dog is this, the frog is that, right? Like, and you're being honest about what's going on, the up, the down, the in between. Maybe you even surmise it in a highlight reel. So it's not a long-winded, 1 hour conversation, but you're being honest and in-depth. And then you say, which we all should, because reciprocity. So what's going on with you? How are you and your dog, your frog, your cat, your parents, your laptop, your project, your whatever, right? And they round it out with statements like, everything's great. We're fine. It's all good. No problems here. Yeah. And you're like, okay, which could be true. Everything could be fine. But you noticed a pattern is every conversation or the majority of them, they want details. Because when you try saying things like, because maybe you're pressed for time or maybe you're just noticing and you're like, let me try it out. And you say, oh, everything's fine. No complaints, some kind of like one-liner. And they start digging. Oh, okay, that's good. Well, how is so-and-so? Oh, but what happened to whatever you said before? Well, what about this? Well, how's your shoulder? Well, how's this? And they like give details because they're trying to extract from you, but they didn't want to have that conversation with you when you were also like, okay, I'm glad everything's fine when they did it with you. And then you ask a more detailed question and they either don't respond to it and they skip down to asking you more, which happens. I hear this all the time from people across the world. People will literally not answer their question and jump to go back about them. And then they'll say things if you call them on it like, oh, no. it's not worth talking about. I just wanted to know what's going on with you. I haven't talked to you in so long. And it's not once in a while. Once in a while, that's totally fine. It could be true. They're just really busy. Sometimes you don't want to give energy to whatever's going on with you, so you don't want to talk about it out loud. But that's with the person you qualify as friend. That's probably far and in between that you constantly, do that. You usually will have those moments here and there. But when you notice there's a pattern, pay attention. When there's a pattern, pay attention. You do not have to adapt to the history that you have in the friendship with these people that you may have contributed to. Maybe for 10 years, you let them ask you all the questions and they barely told you anything about their lives. And, unless they were in a specific crisis or something, you really don't know a lot about what's going on with them, which is fine, except for when they always seem to want to know what's going on with yours. You need to pay attention to that on every level. In some circles, they're considered monitoring spirits, which are never good. In other circles, they are the people who are trying to extract your wisdom from you so they can repurpose it and take credit for it. Business, workplace, whatever. In other circles, those people are literally trying to listen for your downfall, for where they can make themselves feel better, whether they say it out loud to you or not, whether they're verbally minimizing to you or not. Sometimes they're hoping that you are vulnerable and you share the negative things with them, so it makes them privately feel better because of whatever they're really going on. I'm like, oh, at least I'm not as bad as Naketa. Oh, jeez, she's dealing with all the things, right? And sometimes those people will even kind of mirror back to you some of the things that you've shared over time or in that one particular call or conversation. Oh, wow, because you're dealing with this, that, and the third. Girlfriend, you dealing with a lot. You need to slow down, when that's not what you need to hear. Some things, especially some of the things you've shared about family, have nothing to do with what you're doing, you're supporting, and how do you slow down and being the human you are in your family and in your life, when they're really just kind of clocking what you're doing so they can feel better about the season that they're in, even if it's not as good as yours, right? So I just wanted to remind you for a moment, coming from my own personal extractions of friendships in life that I've learned over 40 plus years, as well as I'm hearing this constantly from people in our ecosystem professionally as clients and colleagues and friends, that there's a lot of challenges in the intimacy of these relationships. You do not have to make the normal necessary. You get to question the questions. You get to redefine support. You absolutely get to influence instead of adapting. You do not have to constantly keep putting yourself in a situation where you have to just go along to get along, when you get to influence it. When they are not giving you information back, when you're trying to be in a reciprocal conversation or relationship and you're noticing, have what I would call a coffee conversation. If I invite you to coffee, for anyone who knows me, and I like coffee, I drink coffee, but I am a tea drinker. So typically I invite you to tea when I want to poly with you, when I want to check on you, when I love on you, when I want to hold space with you, when I want to share with you. But if I actually say, let's have coffee, it's because we have a problem and we need to have a deeper conversation. So maybe you need to have coffee with a couple of your friends that are in your platonic friendship circle. Sometimes you need to have coffee with a few other people too, a partner, a sibling, a parent, a child. But specifically for this episode, I want you to remember that you get to define your relationship by influencing and not adapting. In the interim, and before we go, I want you to continue to do what I ask you to do every single episode. Rebel against the rush and trust your inner brilliance so you can work less and absolutely do more without all of the effort. It shows up so significantly. And I know I say that differently all the time, but it's because it's coming from my spirit. So embrace a little bit more of the lazy overachiever in you, and I'll see you on the other side.